John Fetterman, in my opinion, is a corporate plant. I don't believe that a person who came in as a progressive and then less than a year, maybe 2 years later, you've made this just sort of 180, not even 180, maybe 160 turn from who you proclaim to be to get elected. I think he played a role, and he's still sort of playing a role. I'm that worker guy. I'm the hardworking Pennsylvania sort of person who was a progressive, and he got elected, and then he decided to take his costume or his disguise off. That's essentially, in my opinion, what's happening with John Fetterman. But let's listen. He talks about Israel. He talks about the divide within the Democratic Party over Israel and Palestine. So let's listen.
In our politics lead, it is a critical moment for President Biden and Democrats as the war in the Middle East is causing deep divisions, particularly among younger voters, and a fight is raging on Capitol Hill over immigration. Joining me now to discuss is Democratic Senator John Fetterman from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with President Biden. We see in today's New York Times Siena College poll, if the presidential election were held today, Biden would likely lose to Donald Trump.
This is a New York Times Siena poll. We covered it a couple of times yesterday. I didn't get through the whole segment because that story of Trump broke about the Colorado removing off the ballot. But 44 to 46 in margin of error is 3.5. It's listed along the right side. That's why I have to turn my head. Margin of error is 3.5. Now, this is a poll December 10th to the 14th, but there was another poll that just dropped today about swing states, and Donald Trump is up in 5 of the 6 swing states that's polled and outside of the margin error.
Why do you think that is? And do you think that the party should consider nominating someone else to be the Democratic Party's presidential nominee?
Now, the question is, why do you think President Biden is losing, and should they nominate somebody else? Let's listen to John Fetterman.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really mean much to me because the election is for nearly a year ago, and Joe Biden already beat Trump in Pennsylvania, and that's what I really talk about, how he's going to absolutely win in Pennsylvania. And I understand that there's kind of a division between the younger voters between Israel and Gaza, and I really believe the president is very much on the right side of that. And sometimes you may alienate some voters, but it's really most important to be on the right side on that. I mean, that's where I'm at.
I want to get to Israel in a second, but first, I know you're eager to talk about the proposed sale of U.S.
And I'm not eager to listen to that. That's a local issue he's talking about, the sale to a Chinese company of a local steel company. That's what he's talking about here. I'm not interested in that, so let's go. That's like China propaganda, basically, because he's against it, not because of the sale. He's against it because of who it's being sold to.
Let's go back to talking about Israel and the divisions in the Democratic Party, particularly among young voters when it comes to Israel's war against Hamas. 72% of young voters, according to this new poll, disapprove of how President Biden is handling the Israel-Hamas war.
72%, and this is ages 18 to 29. It's a 3.5% margin of error. So at the best case scenario, you're talking 68% disapprove, and a worst case scenario, you're talking about 76% disapprove. So between 68 and 70% of young people between the ages of 18 and 29 disapprove of this
war. You've been very vocal in your full support for Israel. I see the Israeli flag behind you in your office there. You've been very clearly arguing that Hamas bears responsibility for the tragedy of what's going on in Gaza. Why do you think so many younger people, especially in your party, see it differently?
I really don't know. I do know that a lot of people are getting their perspective from TikTok, And I think if you're kind of getting your perspective on the world on TikTok, it's going to tend to be kind of warped or not reflective of the history and actually the way things absolutely are. And
this is something that only plays well for 60 plus year olds, 55 plus. They get their education on TikTok. So do you know you can take videos of documentaries, for example, or lectures, and do you know you can put those on TikTok? So TikTok is a medium, just like, you know, watching your TV. They're pretending like the fact that you're getting your information on TikTok somehow means the information is incorrect. And I'm saying that is, I mean, we are all on, for those of us who are on TikTok, we know that that's preposterous. Let's let him continue to make his terrible points here.
And what is very clear is that Hamas started this, and they actually broke the ceasefire, and they attacked and murdered babies.
Hamas broke the ceasefire. We're just not going to count that 2022 was the deadliest year for the people in Gaza in a long time. We're not going to count that. That's part of the ceasefire. All the murdering, the slaughtering of Palestinians over a year. That's part of the ceasefire to them.
Babies, children, women, attacked a music concert and everything. It's outrageous. And from
the narrative that, anyway, I'm not going to say that.
From now on, it's been very clear that Israel would very much want there to be peace, but they've made it very clear that after
Israel very much well wanted to be peace. Do I need to rewind and bring up the video we just saw of the Israeli settlers trying to kick people out of their homes in the West Bank? So we like, no one is confused about this. Even the people who are pro-Israel, do you think they don't know what the fuck is going on really over there? I don't buy anybody that thinks that Israel is not indiscriminately killing people. I don't buy when people act like Israel is not committing war crimes. I don't buy it when people pretend like Israel is not committing a genocide, like when John Kirby and all these state officials want to act like they don't see the evidence yet. But when Putin kidnaps people, that's a war crime. But when they kill twice as many people that Putin kidnapped, and you can make that determination in a question, you got to go, oh, I can't be the judge and jury right now. Let's listen to the rest of John Fetterman. This guy, and the reason I call him a corporate plant, one, he took corporate money. Two, he said he was down with Israel. He was going to lean into Israel right at the cusp, right before he got elected. And three, it feels like he's playing a role. Like this whole outfit he has on is part of a character, in the same way that, you know how Zelensky still comes to Washington, D.C. The motherfucker couldn't find a suit. Nowhere from Ukraine all the way to Washington, D.C. ain't a suit to be found. He's in a costume because he's playing a role in the same way that this person is playing a role. And this is why I call him a corporate plant.
October 7th. That's just not possible so long as Hamas is allowed to exist.
On immigration, which is a big issue going on in the Senate right now, you recently said, quote, I hope Democrats can understand that it isn't xenophobic to be concerned about the border, unquote. And even though you did run for lieutenant governor and senator.
So is it surprising that the guy who pulled a gun on a black jogger is now going hardcore on immigration? Is that surprising to anyone? You don't think pulling a gun on a black jogger was indicative of how he was going to position himself on immigration? That has no connection to you? Let's continue.
As a progressive, you're now rejecting that label. What would you call yourself?
I would just call myself a Democrat, and I believe that I'm on the right side of issues, whether that's being very pro-choice, maybe that I believe that is being pro-union, and if I believe that's for pro Israel on that as well too. There's absolutely different kinds of opinions in the Democratic Party. And I've always been very clear that I'm going to stand on the right side of what I believe it is. And I've been very upfront on others as well too. And I really have been able to find anybody that can say there's not any kind of an issue right now on the border that has around 270,000 people being encountered on the border just in 1 month. And
well, nobody's saying there's not an issue at the border. No one's saying that. What we're saying is the issue that's being identified are two different things. The issue at the border is not to get rid of people. The issue at the border is that we need more judges so they can adjudicate these asylum cases. Like 10 times the amount of judges. The reason that people are these immigrants that they complain about are staying in the country is because they're waiting to be heard by a judge, and it takes like 4 to 5 years to be heard by a judge. That's what needs to be the solution, John Fetterman, not your right-wing sort of framing of this. And he's gonna talk about it more. Let's listen.
And to put that in perspective, as I've said before, that's the side of Pittsburgh. And if roughly the size of Pittsburgh is showing up in the border, if that's what you need to say, that's fine. That's not really an issue. As a progressive, then I guess that's why.
That's not what anybody is saying. One, they're showing up at the border because of U.S. imperialist policies all over the globe. If you're fucking their home and their house up in their country, not allowing them to economically grow, then they're gonna go find the place where at least the propaganda is saying that's the land of opportunity. You fucking torch your neighbor's house, and then you wondering why the motherfuckers at your door with their fucking clothes and shit.
That's why I wouldn't be a progressive, but I have remained and will always be very, very pro-immigration, perhaps as much as anybody in there.
Before you go, sir, it's been nice talking to you. How is your health? Obviously.
Nobody gives a fuck about this motherfucker's health. Fuck that motherfucker. Fuck him. Talking about how's your fuck the bitch. He's this fucking despicable piece of shit. All right, so let's play this video. I'm not even gonna preface it.
I'm John Fetterman, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm a progressive.
What?
I'm a proud.
This guy is playing a role.
Proud progressive. I'm John Fetterman.
I gotta say, it doesn't look like I didn't see this video at the time. I mean, I don't live in Pennsylvania. If I saw this video and when he's claiming to be a progressive, I'll be like, this looks very unconvincing to me. It sounds like you are just you're progressive in the same way that Hillary Clinton says she's a progressive, and Nancy Pelosi says she's a progressive, and Hakeem Jeffries says they're a progressive. They're progressive by the definition. They're progressive if the definition of progressive means I'm just calling myself progressive as a branding sort of exercise.
I'm John Fetterman, and I'm a Democrat. And I'm a progressive. I'm a proud progressive. I'm John Fetterman.
Let's move on. This guy is fucking terrible. And by the way, community notes. Let's click on it. So somebody posted this. I'm John Fetterman. I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive. Look.
And I'm a Democrat.
And then they quote tweeted him. They quote tweeted John Fetterman where he says, "I'm not a progressive. I'm just a regular Democrat." Remember he posted that? Community Note said Senator Fetterman did campaign as a progressive Democrat, and I'm not quite sure he has addressed why he has made the switch. He's more framing it as he's never been a progressive, not that he's changing. He's trying to frame it that way.